Welcome to the future of telecoms in Africa, where community, culture, and innovation unite. Join us for an exclusive webinar featuring insights from industry leaders about the innovations transforming the telecom industry. Learn how Delayering telecom networks enhances monetization and improves service quality across Africa. Discover how intelligent analytics deliver a total experience and drive incremental revenue for African telecoms. Build strong loyalty and retention strategies to foster community relationships and boost customer retention. Tap into new revenue streams with cutting-edge strategies for APIs, connectivities, and intelligent applications. Enhance customer experience through direct personalized messaging tailored to local communities. Learn how to create innovative platform strategies that resonate with African cultures and drive revenue. Revolutionize your approach to AI-powered network monetization and telecom innovation in Africa. Join us for this must-attend webinar.
In the ever-evolving world of telecommunications, data is king. But amidst the chaos of fragmented information, telecom companies struggle to deliver seamless experiences. Amidst their search, they discover Profile of One, a revolutionary solution designed to unify telecom operations, streamline processes, and deliver personalized experiences. With Profile of One in hand, telecom companies embark on an implementation journey. Teams collaborate tirelessly to integrate the solution, laying the foundation for a unified future. As Profile of One takes root, a transformation sweeps through the telecom landscape. Fragmented data gives way to unified insights, and fragmented experiences evolve into seamless journeys. Peering into the future, telecom leaders see a world transformed by Profile of One. Unified data fuels innovation, and personalized experiences redefine connectivity. Experience the power of One with Profile of One, where fragmented data meets unified solutions, and every interaction counts.
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon to all our attendees. Welcome to an exciting webinar that we've prepared for you on unleashing the power of AI-based data monetization. Today's session is packed with valuable insights and dynamic discussions, and here's what you can expect. We'll start off with an introduction of our topic and its relevance in today's world, especially in the context of Africa. You get to meet the speakers, you see where they come from, what they're doing, a quick introduction of our esteemed panel. We will deep dive into the discussions where we'll explore specific areas related to data, network, APIs, monetization, and much more, given their various perspectives and experiences. Of course, the goal is to foster an engaging and conversational atmosphere that offers actionable insights and sparks innovative ideas. We will quickly get into a Q&A session post that. So you can, while the sessions are going on, put your questions in the chat or mention them as questions. We'll try to either answer them live after the session or some of the, if it's directed to a specific panelist, they'll try to answer it on the chat. And then we'll have a quick roundup of a summary and close the session. So I hope you enjoy yourself and participate as much as possible. So welcome everyone to an exciting and transformative conversation about MTN's data monetization strategy in Africa. Picture this, an Africa-rich continent in vibrant cultures and diverse communities and boundless creativity. It's on the brink of a data revolution right now, with over 1 billion people and close to 60% of them being under the age of 25. And a rapidly growing internet demand and penetration rate, right? The opportunities for data-driven innovation are absolutely staggering for Africa. It's one of the only continents in the world where you can expect double-digit growth in terms of economic demand. So today we'll explore how MTN is not just tapping into this vast reservoir of data, but turning it into a goldmine of opportunities that can uplift communities, drive economic growth, and inspire a new wave of technological advancements. Imagine harnessing data to improve healthcare access for millions, empowering small businesses with digital tools, and connecting people in the most remotest areas of the world. So get ready to dive into this discussion that marries both tradition with technology, where the rhythms of Africa meet the pulse of data analytics, and where the future of Africa is being shaped with the power of information. We will uncover how data is the new oil, and how Africa is poised to become the richest well in the world. Welcome to this revolution, where every byte of data brings us closer to a brighter and more connected future for all. I'd like to start by introducing our panelists. So we have with us Tanya Ladopoulou. She's a general manager for online telesales and online billers for MTN Group. We have Padma Ravichanda, who's the CEO of Technotree Corporation. We have Enzo Scarcella, who is the Chief Consumer Officer for MTN Group. We're also joined by Ali Monzo, who's the CEO of MTN South Sudan, and Purushottamam Davakaranath, who is the Group GM, IT Strategy and Architecture for MTN Group. So let's get into the discussion. So Enzo, let's start with you. How can we actually start harnessing intelligent data analytics to deliver this total experience that everyone is talking about and drive incremental revenue?
So, Priyanka, firstly, thanks for the question. I mean, obviously, telcos, the advent of the use of data to enhance commercial value has been a journey in telcos for a while, right? I'd say it's probably the last 15 to 20 years we've been looking at that. And we've called that customer value management. I think everybody's familiar with CVM, but that has largely been, almost Excel-based, where we'd go for segments in an 8x8 matrix and using maybe 5 to 10 variables, more recently 15 to 20 variables. And we've been successful with that as telcos, right? We get revenue lifts of around about 3% on total service revenue on that, and that's quite healthy. But what we are seeing is, with the power of artificial intelligence in analytics, is the ability to process infinitely more data and infinitely more complex data, and to be able to shape offers to smaller and smaller segments, right? So I'll kind of paint a picture for you. So if a few years ago we were using 20 variables, we're starting to develop a machine learning, a machine with AI capability, a recommendation engine that today will use over 2,000 variables. And those are largely telco variables. It's before we even get into the digital space. That'll explode. So all of a sudden, we've gone from 20 to 2,000. That's a factor of 100. What that means is that your segments go almost from 64 segments to ultimately, and I was smiling at your video because you ultimately go to a segment of 1. The only thing that limits us now is the product catalog, right? Because the product catalog cannot be a product of 1. Although I know Jyoti will tell me that in her past life, she's launched products to a segment of 1. But I think, if you think about what is the vision and the panacea, it's saying being able to harness. So consumers today consume, we come from a world of voice and data, right? Now there's voice, data, geolocation, video, and it's
KYC,
everything that happens on the internet. That's all there to say, what does consumer behavior look like? And that's become infinitely more complex. So I'd say that's kind of the journey we're on. It's CVM 1.0 was really kind of basic cross and upsell. CVM 2.0, we started to put some machine learning models in place. We expanded to probably 20 variables. Now we're going to CVM 3.0, where we're saying we're not only using OSS data, BSS data, we're also going to start using digital data, and that then means you're going from this to this, and then going from 64 segments to segment of 1. So it's an exciting journey.
So just to kind of double click on something that you said, right? You said it's going to explode when it goes to digital service. So I have 2 questions, right? One is, how exactly, I mean, what is your strategy to actually start extending this monetization, both in terms of your, AI strategy platform, right? To start extending it into digital services. And the second one is, like, if I was a digital service company, I would want to know what your business model is. So just like you have wholesale arrangements on connectivity with maybe some MVNOs, et cetera, are you going to start having data arrangements between yourselves, aggregators, marketplaces, maybe service providers, where you can start importing their data models into your models and then start creating more intelligence around it? So could you shed some light on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's I mean, you kind of going on a path. We're probably closer to the beginning than the end there, right? But let me get to where we'd use this on CVM. So
Sure.
so I'll talk first to kind of the way we think of the architecture. The architecture says whatever data we can harvest, let us harvest that within our own environment, right? Let's put it into one place. In MTN, we call that one place EVA. Right? Named after the mother of mankind, right? So all of the data sits there. What the AI models then sit is an intelligence layer on top of that. Today we call that NBX. So EVA here, NBX there, and then really the recommendation engine is there, and you, through a series of APIs, expose those to multiple channels. So what you have is omni-channel offers across infinite products, because all of the product information, the BSS information is there. So I think you get that picture, right?
Absolutely.
Now, yeah. So what you're pointing to then is say, okay, if you're harvesting as much data as you can, how do you reciprocate that by sharing this data? And so we've got a business called Chinosis, and that's ultimately what Chinosis does, right? Chinosis is we've got more data than what we know to do, until now we actually didn't know what to do with all of this data. I think we're getting smarter now, right? But Chinosis is saying we've got behavioral data on voice, and we've got geolocation data, we've got right? And we can create APIs that we can share with the world for people in the development space to use our data, anonymized data, for all the privacy people on the call, anonymized data that then can be used to develop products and services that can serve a different audience. So, and I think that relationship of firstly anonymizing data and then sharing data, that reciprocity, I think is the way of the future. So open API architectures, reciprocity of data, and then large amounts of data being harnessed and targeted at segments of one is roughly the way I try to create a vision of the future for all of the people on the call, or the way MTN's thinking about it. There may be smarter ways, but that's the way I think about it, and the way MTN's thinking about it.
No, I think it's really interesting, and I think it's a good point to bring in, Padma, because all the things that you mentioned, right, in terms of creating Chinosis, it's a part of your delayering strategy. It's one of your unicorn ideas in MTN, and of course standardization is important. So Padma, do you have a comment on what kind of strategies is it delayering or whatever it is for monetization? How can we help create that platform to actually start monetizing across verticals, improve efficiency, service quality, not just for MTN and their telecom customers, but also enabling an ecosystem of enterprises to gain from these I would say network or ecosystem effects of the data. Oh, you're on mute, Padma.
Thank you. Thank you, Priyanka. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the audience. Your question is highly relevant and very, very pertinent to what's happening in the industry today. And it was really exciting to listen to Enzo speaking about CVM 3.0 and beyond, and how we're going to integrate data to create that singularity of vision. I would say that MTN is transforming at breakneck pace compared to many other customers that I'm serving. And it's really a delight to be a partner with you guys. What I would say is that the delayering of telco itself has mostly happened a decade ago into the infraco, netco, servco by many CSPs in different geographies to attract capital valuation and take their business asset to better performance. But today's challenge for CSPs is that they're facing headwinds with static to low grade growth in revenue in the last few years, and also a telecom market disruption with many new service entrants that are entering the space, and there's increasing competition from multiple directions. So there is also a compelling industry shift towards the moving away from the traditional vertical aggregation and integration to more a delayered strategy for growth. This would really reflect upon how well, in the early 2000s, the CSPs created the ServCo-NetCo departure from the InfraCo to provide more customer-focused operations and customer experience and marketing-led service delivery capability, challenging the OTT players, and also to enter into industry-specific offerings through MVNOs, whereas the NetCo optimized the network infrastructure. In simple terms, this transformation is huge in terms of how one has to critically examine how to optimize and foster profitable growth while transforming the business into these kinds of delayered concepts and leverage the capabilities of each other between the ServCo and the NetCo. So I really believe when you look at the CSPs today, the real ask in the business is to move away from selling pure technology to selling value. For example, a simple example, today any CSP is well equipped to sell a 5G infrastructure to an airport. But can they even dream of selling an end-to-end improved user experience at the airport? And that from business conceptualization to cash, that is the need of the hour. That is the call to action of our CSPs, our customers today. To unleash this power of the digital capability, even Enzo's talked about how they're bringing all of these platforms together, and to imagine a world where there is seamless interaction, high levels of personalization and optimization in terms of transformation. And that's really what is being asked of the CSPs, to move away from verticalization, to turn disruption into digital delight. And I think the race is on, and to create intrinsic value in the space is what most of the CSPs is aspiring to do with AI, through data disruption and many other types of strategies to improve their whole business value proposition. So if you look at some of the concepts that I'm speaking about, many of these concepts are not new. It is really how you drive the standardization of the platform to make it scalable, to make it data-driven, to have a level of standardization. And I would say MTN has been foremost in influencing standardization across its opcos, even in the digital transformation journey. I would say they are the forerunners, and we've been partnering with them to drive this standardization. And the TM Forum APIs, the real world APIs we've implemented along with them, the order compliances that we have followed, are all allowing them to unlock this value of improving the service quality going forward. And as you said, Priyanka, if data is the new oil, by unlocking the intelligence in the data, the CSPs can be the new sheikhs in town. And I really believe a lot depends on their AI strategy and their data monetization strategy. One is, I would say, AI-powered personalization is a must. And having the data pipelines to collect data, aggregate data, to create the algorithms, to build out increased sales capabilities, reduce churn capabilities, and so on and so forth with targeted offerings. The second would be the area of predictive analysis, whether it is to harness AI to drive predictive capability on customer churn or network failures, and proactive retention strategies to improve customer loyalty and enhance customer loyalty by understanding customer behavior. The third area in terms of data strength is in operational efficiencies with automation, implement AI automation tools, streamline processes, optimize resources with co-piloting type capabilities on the platform, and boost overall operational efficiencies and cost savings. And finally, I would say, you touched upon this on partner ecosystem and playing in the adjacent markets. When you leverage the CSP's customer data capability, it's a horizontal capability. And then when you combine that with verticalized partner ecosystem capability in adjacent markets like e-health or education or connected cars or connected digital experiences in gaming, etc., you start to drive new value and new experiences and new opportunities for monetizing growth and retaining customers. The opportunities are endless. The key is to know how to combine them for different markets, how to bring the whole strategy together in terms of go-to-market campaigns, etc., and partnering with ecosystem players, and also the organizational capability to lead the change in terms of business transformation and transformation of customer experiences in the process. So that's what I would say.
I think that's really it's really strategic, is what you're trying to say. It's not just a technical advancement; it's a strategic move for operators to get into this space. And I think I would want to kind of, before I get into the value, probably invite Puru, to kind of expose what is MTN's AI strategy, right? And how are you looking at data monetization today? And I think that's going to kind of set the context for the rest of the discussions, which are really going to start talking about the value that MTN is driving today, right, across digital touch points, loyalty, etc. So,
okay. Thanks, Priyanka, for the question, and thanks, Padma, for setting the tone. I'm just teeing off from the key, the epics that you built on the delayering of the telco. I think at this moment is the opportune time that we are talking about AI and monetization, and I believe that in the overall value chain of a telco, we are playing in multiple areas. Enzo did touch upon on the data part. So besides data, we are talking about the apps for monetization as well as the connectivity. So it's a full value chain, including the infrastructure where we are playing. I think from our standpoint, the way we see the AI playing out, we have, in terms of the data across Africa, we are sitting about on like 300 million subscriber base, the amount of data that we have generated. We are using that data from a monetization perspective, both from a private and public partnerships. We are looking at both geolocation, geospatial data, from a mobility perspective, like what exactly we can encash. And that's where there's a lot of things that comes into the place when we talk about beyond advertising, when we talk about adjacencies. Padma did touch upon the healthcare part. We are also talking about the mining industry, as well as, some of the other things that we are doing from an entertainment side. Now, besides that, I think the next key opportunity that we look at is because of the the amount of data that we have, some of the things that we talk about. Sorry, just one second. Some of the things that we talk about from a monetization point of view, when it comes to storage, infrastructure, data sovereignty aspect. That is another area that we can play on. And because the regulations in Africa is it's not very stringent, is very loosely defined. I think it gives us an opportunity, like how do we play on the data sovereignty side, and like also from an infrastructure side, when we want to give sovereign AI. Also on the connectivity side, I think not everybody has access to to the supercompute power. Secondly, the energy and the like the kind of cooling kind of requirements that is required. So this is where we have an opportunity to partner with hyperscalers to give localized kind of like a GPU service, etc., for our enterprises too. So that is broadly, are the areas where we see playing. And this is a very evolving space. Like today, people have been talking about large language models. So we are definitely working in that space with our partnership with Microsoft. We're also looking at how we can offer AI at the edge. I mean, that's a very interesting use case that's coming in. And Enzo did touch upon some of the parameters before. I think today we are also saying that do we really need those many parameters, like in billions or trillions, to specifically solve a use case? And this is where we are bringing the localization flavor with a limited number of parameters. What is the kind of innovation we can bring in? Let's say localize for a market, like let's say West Africa market or a Southeast Asia market, when it comes to customer experience, when it comes to language specific needs, or when we say hyper personalization, how can we inject into that? I think those are the insights that we are bringing in collaboration and interjecting with technology to basically give value to our customers, and also keeping being prudent about the costs. I think the best thing that we have been doing is we are innovating with a very prudent control on the cost and the capital allocation that we are doing. I mean, we're not saying that we are spending a lot of money for the sake of spending money, and we need to have the best of breeding, tech to deliver this. So that's where we have been very innovative about it. And that's, I mean, we are looking at it holistically. I mean, we are looking at adopting responsibly. We are being very transparent. We are keeping the regulations in mind. We are also saying that what actually works for Africa, and that's how we are evolving. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's super strategic, because I think MTN has been an innovator not just for Africa, but is an example for innovation for the world, because there are many people across the world in other markets as well that are under the same pressures for cost, same pressures for access to information. And for example, like the innovation that MTN did on the prepaid side, you literally created prepaid and took it to the world. And I think there's a huge opportunity here if you're successful in terms of your data strategy, for a lot of other emerging markets to benefit on how you actually implement. It's not really about what, because what is like there's so much potential, but it really, if MTN is successful, I think they can be not just successful for Africa, but a lot of parts of the world can learn from what's happening at MTN. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I think now this is a good point to invite Ali Monzo. Thank you so much for being with us today. And we want to kind of understand. So now we're talking about, we've got a platform, we've got a strategy in place. We're looking at the infra, we're looking at the ServCo, bringing them together for the African market. Now we're talking about the value. Now, and Padma mentioned as well, it's not just about delivering technology, it's also about delivering value, right, to enterprises and customers. So how can you actually build like a powerful retention loyalty program that delivers value, strengthens relationships, and boosts customer retention?
Thank you, Priyanka, and panelists of setting the tone, and I want to welcome the audience as well. And thank you for the question. But before we go into the how, it's extremely important to talk about the why. When we unlock the why, it will be easy for us to understand the how. Absolutely. Right now in our market, the cost of acquiring a new customer in our industry is becoming extremely high due to several factors. I mean, marketing expenditure, promotional offer, and in some cases, in some markets, we need to subsidize devices and provide attractive packages to entice customer to switch provider. And oftenly our market are saturated as well. The mobile penetration in some of the market are more than 100%. So meaning that most potential customer already have a provider in place. So make it more challenging and expensive to lure them away from their initial provider. But and also new customer often do not yield the desired return immediately. They will give you a lower ARPU compared to the existing customer or the old customer on the network. So the initial cost associated with acquisition mean that it takes time for this customer to become profitable on your network or on your system. And they may also be less loyal. The new customer are less loyal by almost 60% from existing customer, and more likely to switch to another provider if they find a better deal. And that's the reality. And in our market right now, we are not competing. We as a technology provider, We are not competing with the like of Airtel or Orange. We are competing with everyone. We are competing on the value share. We need the customer to use that $1 that he or she has in her pocket or his pocket to spend on our product. So our competition or our competitor are not necessarily a technology service provider like us. So as a result, we are increasingly focusing on customer loyalty and retention strategy. This will help us to foster stickiness, and it will aim to reduce churn rates and enhance the lifetime value of our existing customer, and also, which is extremely important for us, to give back to our customer. One of our core pillars as an MTN is to give back to our customer and to give back as well to our communities. And once you give back to customer, you will be creating an emotional stickiness with the brand. And the emotional stickiness, it's more powerful than anything else.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
you will move away from a transactional method to an emotional stickiness with the brand. So in a nutshell, you are absolutely right. We must focus on creating value for our customer, and they need to feel that they are getting appreciated for the value that they are adding for that service provider or for us as an MTN. And also Enzo and Padma has touched directly or indirectly on how we can achieve that. Maybe quickly from my side, for sure, personalized reward and recognition is extremely key. We need to utilize the AI, machine learning, to analyze customer behavior and preferences, offer them a personalized reward that are relevant and meaningful to each customer. So customer demand a lot. Customer need these days are different, and you need to go from the macro segment to the segment of one. And I think Enzo touched on the segment of one, leveraging on AI and machine learning, and how we can use the thousand of the data point that we have from a different source. And when we talk about source here, we are not talking about the traditional source that are sitting, or the structured source that are sitting within our ecosystem. We are talking about digital source, the social media source. This information has to be combined, has to be ingested, has to be crunched, sliced, diced, and then we can derive a meaningful insight that can help us to offer the segment of one, meaning a unique offer for every single customer. So we have thousands of data points. We know at what time you wake up, Priyanka. We know what you do when you wake up. We know where you go. We know what you eat. We know what milk you like if you are using mobile money. We know what pizza you like. We know to which hospital you go, which medicine do you buy if you are using mobile money. Every single products in our business give us an additional data points. So imagine the volume of data that we have on you. For sure, data protection come into play. And now with the AI, I think we should have AI data protection. Canada recently in March this year, they have upgraded their data protection, and they introduced what they called IDA, Artificial Intelligence Data Protection. So, so we need to introduce a flexible loyalty program that will allow customer to accumulate points, accumulate and redeem award anywhere. Not to limit customer to do the redemption from the telco ecosystem or from the service provider, but anywhere, especially using the mobile money ecosystem that we have built over the years. And we are pioneering in mobile money as well for the last 14, 15 years in Africa. And you rightly said, Africa is exporting the innovation to the world. We are the Silicon Valley of mobile money. And we are the Silicon Valley, and we have a big potential to be the Silicon Valley of AI and machine learning in Africa and the world. So, and also an additional point when it comes to loyalty and ring-fencing the customer, I think Padma has touched on that point, is to enhance customer experience. We need to leverage on the AI and implement AI-driven customer service solution. Some of them now into play, like the chatbot, virtual assistant, to provide instant and real-time support and improve customer satisfaction. But from my perspective, you know, Priyanka, I always say the best call center in the world is the call center without agent. Like, either you don't have problem, you don't need a call center, which is impossible, or either we are using a machine learning to predict the customer complaint and provide a solution proactively to ensure a seamless and enjoyable experience for the customer. So there is no need for the customer to call your call center. So by focusing on this strategy, we are not only creating a value for our customer, but also build a stronger, more loyal relationship with our customer. And as I said, our mission is not only to take, but also to give back.
Yeah.
And this is our approach. Thank you, Priyanka.
No, thank you so much, Monzo. And I think, you know, what you kind of touched upon is so important because, you know, the truth is that AI is probably better at being empathetic than humans are. Just because there's too much information, too many customers, too many channels to talk on. So if we had a chance of being an empathetic society and economy, I think the fastest way to get there is going to be through data. And it's amazing that MTN, which is like, you know, like Padma said, the shakes of the new data economy, right, is spearheading this. And I think it's going to be really exciting for digital services and partners to be able to work with MTN, get onboarded onto your platform, whether it's through Chenoises or Mobile Money or IOBA, you know, and start participating and contributing to that data economy that MTN is trying to actually create, you know, and of course, building that loyalty and emotional connection with the customers is obviously at the heart of it. So thank you so much for sharing your insights, Monza. I think it was kind of spot on. Very good. Thank you. Tanya, if you know, you work across digital touchpoints, right? And it's so important, like Monza mentioned, right, to connect emotionally with customers across different types of channels. So how is MTN today looking at personalization across channels, whether it's for direct messaging or for building those long-term, multiple long-term relationships simultaneously?
Hi, Priyanka. Thank you for the question. But, you know, let me start by saying that while listening to all this very interesting discussion, what is very clear is that from an MTN perspective, we have a very unique advantage in paving the way in AI. And the reason why is that, you know, firstly, the telecoms industry has the biggest volumes, but also the widest range of data to apply AI on. And now, if you add on top the fact that MTN can enhance this data with around 70 million mobile users, mobile money users that Ali now mentioned, and the fact that we have been as an organization consistently over time investing into the right AI technologies like big data, deep machine learning, I think, you know, we're in a very good position of leading, you know, the game in AI. Now, back to your question, you know, on personalization of communication and why this is really important. You know, I told you in the beginning, I'm wearing my sales hat. So by effectively personalizing our communication channels, we can improve customer satisfaction, which leads to increased engagement. Then we drive higher conversion rates, which ultimately is leading to more effective monetization. And I think, you know, at the end of the day, this is what every single business is striving for. And the reason why I was talking earlier, you know, about data is because if we really understand artificial intelligence at its core, it is really about creating smart systems that can analyze vast amounts of data, learn from it, and then make informed decisions. So the journey for personalization, I think, you know, actually begins with data. And by collecting them from various touch points, such as, you know, browsing behavior, purchase history, social media interactions, customer feedback, AI can really help us in build comprehensive customer profiles. And so that's a bit around it, Ali, as well. the right profiling of the customer is actually the foundation for personalized communication. And AI alone, the technology alone is not enough. We need the right quality of data at the right place. One of the most powerful applications that we use in MTN, from AI in personalization is predictive analytics. And we use algorithms that can analyze historical data to predict future behaviors and preferences. And if you think about it, this enables us to get in front of our customers with what they may need, even before the actual data arises in their head. It's really amazing. It's really amazing what we have the power to do. Another exciting application of AI now, Ali was mentioning about it, and I'm really passionate about chatbots and virtual assistants. It's really the future. I'm managing call centers. I'm the head of telesales. We have over 1,000 call center agents. The amount of manual operations behind it, really raises the need of how do we need to get leaner and more efficient on how we run these processes? How do we interact with our customers? And, these AI-driven tools, they provide instant personalized assistance 24/7. They don't take holidays. They don't have weekends. They are 24/7 at the service of our customers. Whether it is, to answer frequently asked questions, guide users when they're having a difficulty through a purchasing process, or even, getting ahead of the need, as we said, by suggesting, product that actually reply and respond to the needs of the customers. They are there at the service of our customers to increase the engagement and increase loyalty, back to Ali's point. What's also important is that, unlike humans, these chatbots and the virtual assistants, they actually learn from every single interaction. They become more effective over time. From an MTN perspective, what we try to do, we can even train these AI assistants, through NLP, the natural language processing, so that they understand better and more accurately the customer inquiries, and excluding all these nuances about, language, accent, background noises. So they can really be trained in excluding all these disadvantages in a human-like conversation and really be to the point. What's even more impressive is that we can apply, there are specific models that we can apply around sentiment analysis. So we identify the emotional state of the customer, and then we tailor the responses accordingly. I'm in the call centers very, very often. If you hear, for instance, how frustrated, how emotional a customer can get for a billing query, and rightfully so,
obviously.
100%, rightfully so, we can train with specific models, our virtual assistants and our chatbots, to pick this kind of emotional frustration and respond in a different manner, more urgently, more empathetically. And, this drives, I think, the whole personalization in the communication in a whole different level. You feel understood, you feel valued, you feel supported. And this is what, at the end of the day, drives the experience, the loyalty, and then, increased sales that speaks to our own KPIs and objectives as a business. Also, what I say very, very often to my teams is that, there is no better time to sell to a customer than the moment that you have a happy customer.
Absolutely.
So the moment that you have been able to proactively help, support, resolve a problem that the customer has, you are at the best point that you can ever be in achieving a successful sale. And AI is actually revolutionizing the way we support the customers by making the customer service proactive rather than reactive. For instance, with AI models, we can analyze the patterns in the customer interactions to understand and identify a potential issue before it even escalates. For me, this is really, mind-blowing capabilities
Absolutely.
that we have.
Yeah,
And
it takes it to another level, right? For MTN. Absolutely.
Totally. And what we strive with, within MTN South Africa is to keep consistent in the way that we communicate with our customers across all channels. Sometimes, we treat differently the customer when it comes to a digital touch point, or differently when they walk into a store and they have to wait 35 minutes to be serviced, or when they are on a call with one of our customer care agents. What is very important, and I think, this is really what adds the extra cherry on top of the cake is that we keep consistent in this personalized kind of interaction with the customer. The omni-channel approach is key in order, to take this again, to take the game into, a different level. Ali also did mention that through AI and through all this information and data that we have, we actually know more than anybody else about what you do and how you do it, more than your wife, more than your husband. So what is very, very important is that we ensure that, we have the customers feeling trust, confidence that their data are not being used in a way that will expose them, but only will be used in a way to add value and to make their lives easier.
Yeah,
so Priyanka, in conclusion, and I think we can talk for hours about about artificial intelligence and how it can actually contribute. But I think at the end of the day, it's very obvious it's a game changer in personalizing the customer communications, and enhancing our user experience. And by leveraging all these capabilities, we can, as an organization, understand our customers better, predict their needs, and deliver tailored experiences that actually resonate. Because what we do so far, traditionally, we have generic messages, generic interactions, generic product offerings. Do they necessarily resonate to each specific individual? Not really. So I think, it's the only way forwards as we are standing right now. It can help us, boost the customer satisfaction and loyalty, but also drive, our business in a constant, sustainable growth and keep us ahead of the game in this very competitive world.
Well, I mean, I think it's it's definitely such an important moment, for MTN and operators around the world. And I like what you said, that emotional connection is so important to resonate with. And I think Ali Monzar also mentioned, operators know everything, but it's also it's more about being relevant in a way that you're giving back. So I think MTN had a flagship loyalty program called Senkyu, right? In Uganda, it brought MTN into the #1 NPS score by providing personalized, relevant loyalty by aggregating partners beyond telco and creating those personalized experiences, right, for consumers across the world. So I think everything that you said is so appropriate, and it's quite inspiring actually to see MTN leading the way, especially from Africa, where there is so much potential for growth in the market, and it's unharnessed. Like, I'll give you an example. Like you mentioned, right, the dialects are different across different groups. This was also a problem in India, where there are like 10,000 dialects or something like that across the Indian subcontinent, and there's a dialect called Rajasthani and Haryanvi. Now, traditionally, they could never directly do business with each other because they speak a different language and a different dialect, even if they're connected, even if there's connectivity, even if there's, all these different types of channels to communicate. Today, with the local LLMs or localized LLMs, now they can directly do business with each other without any of these middlemen or middlewomen, in place. And it's a whole unharnessed economy that has never existed before. So we're hitting a new wave of the ability to transact and do business with each other. And I think, the delayered approach that MTN has taken with all its little unicorns, Ioba, Momo, now Chenoisis, and of course the data monetization strategy is going to actually unlock a lot of business and economy that has so far not been extracted. And this is all virtual. This is all ethereal, and it's still unharnessed potential. So thank you so much, Tanya, for sharing your insights. I think it resonated really well with the topic, and it was very eye-opening and inspiring to hear what MTN is doing in the African market. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time.
Priyanka.
So Padma, just to kind of bring it together a little bit, how can operators with their partners like Technotree create that telco masterpiece, right? Platform strategy. so that can drive innovation, at the same time be standardized and create that groundbreaking network effect that Enzo is gunning for, in terms of, the future of that data monetization strategy. You're on mute.
Thank you, Priyanka. It was such an exhilarating experience listening to Puru, listening to Monzer, listening to Tanya, listening to Enzo. I mean, I'm just enjoying this session incredibly. And, just to the point that Tanya made and Monza made before I answer your question about that killer strategy for the perfect platform, I just want to say one thing. In Technotree, with our sensor fabric, one of the things that we really strive is a positive emotional quotient, that in every relationship, in every transaction, you want to get that emotional quotient to be positive. And everything that Monza talked about and everything that Tanya talked about with the power of data to drive that positive interaction at the end of every customer interaction is really key to, a very, very successful strategy. Now, clearly, it's not, you talked about that perfect partnership, that perfect platform strategy to create and drive innovation. It's a journey. It's not any one trick. It's not, a one trick that's going to address the requirement. It's a long journey. And, I'm a very, very proud partner of MTN in that the vision for this journey started, I would say, in the early 2010s when, I have to say that management and many of the people here today are familiar with it. I mean, my interactions with Jyoti and her team was all about standardization across opcos and driving standardization on the platform, having common sources of technology across the board and leveraging that capability between geographies to unify information, to unify access to information. Enzo talked about the segment of one. These are all very key tenets to driving innovation. So, I mean, there are several strategies to consider on how to craft a perfect platform strategy that will simplify your a common experience across the CSP, the customer, the partners, and the employees in a very agile and yet scalable way so that business innovation can happen very quickly and that it can create groundbreaking new products and services. The first, of course, I mean, we've talked a lot about this today, is put customer at the heart of the strategy. Everything that you do, live, breathe are for the customer. Customers aren't just some mathematical number, of 350 million subscribers or something. They are the heartbeat of the business. To utilize data analytics to decode their desires and preferences and their pain points, and then to tailor offerings and create very quick, microservices and journeys that fulfill their need through multiple information channels through which you understand what they require is an art and a science. And I'm proud to say that we have strived in the last decade, along with MTN, to create platforms that enable this kind of capability with low code, no code orchestration and microservices enabled architectures, which are ODA compliant. And the APIs are real world APIs that are TM Forum compliant. What it does is it brings scalability and flexibility in terms of how you can adapt to changing market conditions. Technology is a means to a business end. And if it doesn't serve the business, then the technology is useless. So we have really, really strived very hard to understand the business requirements and adapt the technology to be highly flexible and scalable. The other big issue in a community like a telecom operator, both in the NetCo and ServCo, is integration capabilities. Innovation thrives in their business in terms of how they are able to integrate people, process, applications, and devices. to create that secret sauce for success. Therefore, a successful platform strategy has to have seamless integration, seamless and timely integration to other systems, other operating systems, other CRM systems, other third-party applications, to bring meaningful information together very quickly, rapidly, and service the customer. I think it was Tanya who said, you know, connectivity is more important than anything in terms of the value that we place for connectivity. And customers get extremely frustrated if they lose connectivity or they are represented wrongly or whatever situation they get into. One of the early tenets and foundational processes that CSPs have embarked, right from the days of network standardization, network infrastructure standardization with SS7, etc., is adherence to standards. And I keep repeating it. I think that has been the one single source of success. The other area is the regulatory conformance. The regulators have been hard on CSPs in terms of KYC, in terms of how data is protected. So today, when we are exploring opportunities to use that data in a meaningful way and provide much greater type of customer interactions, the regulatory compliance and governance and security around data is in the DNA of the CSP. And I feel they are far better suited to ensure that trust and responsible use of information today, and they're well equipped to bring that level of data governance. Of course, data-driven decision-making is important. We talked a lot about how embedded AI, data analytics, insights, co-piloting, generative type of capabilities with bots, etc., are very important in terms of introducing time to market, bringing business focus and focused outcomes, and more importantly, to be able to integrate trust and responsible ways of serving the customer. The other area I would say is a product-led mindset. And this is a transformation. This is an internal transformation for a telco to become more product-led thinking, where automation can streamline processes, whether it's order to cash, cash to completing successfully a provisioning capability, or troubleshooting an issue on the network. All of these things require repeatability, scalability, and performance. And therefore, using automated tools in the platform strategy wherever possible becomes very important. But beyond all of that, there are certain other important organizational elements, people and practice elements that we have to look at in terms of this journey. And there, I think it's investing in good talent, attracting and acquiring top talent across the world, building an organization that's capable of delivering this kind of innovation and digital training, continuous learning, commitment to employee retraining and retraining with strong LMS capabilities are important. And then an innovation culture in the company where we plan for innovation, we plan for business process alignment for the innovation. It's part of the business goals, and we handsomely reward organizational innovation, organic and organizational innovation within the company. I just want to say one thing finally. In my humble observation, I have worked in technology for several years. We have global customers around the world. But one of the observations is that strong business, MTN has a very strong and has been a very, very important digital partner over a couple of decades for us. And they have led the digital revolution in the African market, and I've watched it happen and unfold in front of my eyes. And what I truly believe, including what we take away from this experience, combined experience as a partner with MTN, is that what is good for MTN is good for Africa. And today, I'm proud to say what's good for Africa is good for the world. And I'm proud to be part of creating that change and making that transformation happen. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Padma. We have a few questions from the audience. So probably Enzo or Puru, would you like to take up some of them? One is on the partnership strategy. Does MTN plan to have some kind of partnership strategy? Probably, Enzo, you want to address that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, as I said earlier, Priyanka, we closer to the beginning than the end. I think this partnership was unveiled at Mobile World Congress this year. We've been in conversation with the people leading the partnership. We've also been in conversation with other telcos building or consortia building large language models. So I can't commit and say, yes, we're going to join this consortium, but we're in conversations. And we're in conversations with other consortia. I don't know if Puru has anything to add to that.
No, I fully support it, Enzo. I mean, to add on to what you have added, it's we are exploring the the alliances as well as which along with the SKT and the likes. Besides that, we are also working with the TM Forum, GSMA to say that how this consortium moves forward. Plus the strategic partnerships that we are working with, like beyond the Microsofts and the Google. So, and as well as, some of the startups that we are working in Africa, like Founders Factory, etc. We are bringing the outside in references as well as innovations to within MTN. So that's how we are progressing on this.
And Puru, maybe you just want to take on the next question as well, and maybe Enzo, you can add to it. The question is about bias. How do you kind of restrict that? How do you ensure it's not discriminatory, for customer groups? Isn't the human component critical, if not more expensive? I think the two separate questions. One is on bias and trust, and the other one is on the cost aspect of it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think, see, it's a very valid question. I mean, I can give you examples in terms of the pilot that we started around 18 months back in Nigeria when we, based on this OpenAI partnership with Microsoft. I think that was a learning process both for MTN as well as Microsoft, where the early models, they had a lot of biases, hallucinations, etc., in terms of how models were trained, and the way we have done is definitely there's a lot of human interventions involved. We influence in terms of the policies that have to be implemented. That was something that was built into the framework by Microsoft, but also what has happened in the last 18 to 20 months is the responsible AI framework, the transparency, etc. I think, Priyanka, you did mention before about the RAI. So this is something that most of the telcos are proposing and endorsing. And this is something that we have been pushing for, just to say that, like from a brand impact as well as, from a customer experience perspective, these things are taken into control. So we have come a long way with MS as well as how the models are implemented, influenced, and what exactly we are. It's no more like a black box, like what it was initially. So the human element is definitely there. Even today, we say that AI generated responses are not to be trusted 100%. So what we have actually done is we have evolved our models, our knowledge base, and the kind of use cases we are doing. We have been very particularly in terms of prioritizing our use cases to say that, the accuracy levels are high, and we also tuned the models to address that.
Okay, and I think Enzo, you can add to that as well.
No, I want to speak about something different if you give
Sure.
me the
Sure,
Priyanka. So
absolutely.
firstly, I want to thank Padma for what she said, and I completely agree with her on the technology back end about standardization, scaling, and product management and being product led. But I think that's from technology out, right? I think from a telco point of view, and we've had largely a technology conversation today, we've also got to go, and Tanya touched on the customer, is the ability for these artificial intelligence technologies to help us better serve from the customer back into the telco and create better, more personalized experiences. Because I think it's going to be product-led from technology out, but experience-led from the customer's point of view. So personalized experiences, enhanced experiences, but mostly what telcos have failed to deliver are frictionless experiences. And I think the more we understand of the customer, the more predictive we become, the more we can deliver frictionless experiences. So that's what excites me, is how do we serve the customer better and create less hassle and less friction in their world? And I think this creates the opportunity. But I think we have to adhere to the disciplines and the principles that Padma spoke about earlier. Otherwise, we won't get the benefit of scale and the ability to deliver this.
So it's like intent-based, product-led approach.
Exactly.
And supported by the discipline of, like you said, of standards, right? So that becomes quite important as well. It's almost like marketing-led product development, maybe. And in some cases. Consumer-led.
Empathetic product development. Yeah.
Absolutely. Right. Perfect. I think, so Padma, do you have any comments? Ali, Monza, do you have any comments? Tanya, any final comments? Just like Enzo, everybody can come online and maybe we can just do a round of what you thought and close the session. Yeah, sure. Padma, why don't you go ahead and.
Yeah, thank you, Priyanka, and thank you for the entire MTN team today. It was an exhilarating, very compelling set of discussions that happened, intellectually stimulating, at the same time setting the pace for what's to come, making it really, really exciting in terms of the new universe we are entering with AI and large amounts of data that we can consume and bring a singularity to purpose in every journey. At the same time, know a lot about the information that goes behind the scenes to create that singular experience. So I completely and uniquely enjoyed this experience. It was a great distraction for me from my daily, everyday work meetings and so on. It's a pleasure to work with all of you and serve you and have a mind share and mind space today with all of you. Thank you very much.
Ali, Monza, do you want to add anything just to summarize your impressions of the session so far?
Yeah, sure. I mean, thank you first for having me on this panel, and I hope that the audience has enjoyed the discussion. Just one point on the AI topic. AI is not a buzz. AI is not an internet bubble. If you are following now the discussion in the stock market, NVIDIA bubble, everyone is comparing AI with the internet bubble in the 1990s, where everyone was having a website. He will go to the stock market and open an IPO. AI is a reality. AI is not an internet bubble. And AI is not just the future. It's our present realities. And AI is going to transform our industry and redefining our customer experience. So let us continue to innovate and lead the way with Technotree as a platinum partner for MTN in shaping a smarter, more connected world. Thank you so much.
And Tanya, what about you? Any summary points for this session?
Thanks, Priyanka. Just again, from my side, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to be in this panel. I hope, our audience found it interesting. They took some food for thought for later on during the weekend around the AI. Thanks to Technotree, that is triggering us into these kind of discussions that further on it triggers more action, more thought, and more, better execution and how we're doing things and understanding for me what's important, because in this panel, the discussion came from people from different kinds of functions within MTN. And it's very important to see, how all these different functions with sometimes different, a bit kind of different, low-level KPIs and objectives can actually get together and form the value chain that will deliver the overall, strategy and the overall vision of the organization. I think it's very important. Thank you very much.
And Puru, last but not least, and I think you can close the session.
Yeah, thanks, Padma, Priyanka, and Technotree. I think it was a very valuable webinar, as well as it comes at a very opportune time. And as Monza said, that everybody is trying to get hold of the train of NVIDIA, as well as the future opportunities from AI. And AI is actually becoming a reality. Like people have started realizing that the value is being unlocked, and the tangible value that is being created. Like not just it's more of a buzzword. I think we have touched upon some of the key topics, best practices. We spoke about delayering, open digital architecture. And so I mean, thanks to you as well as your product stack and the platform, we have a ODA stack readily available. We have the APIs available. We are infusing with AI at the core. So we have all the ingredients, to make this successful story. And we have already come a long way. And it's now all about, taking it to the next stage. Thank you. Thank you, Priyanka. And thank you to the audience and panel.
Thank you so much for your kind words. And of course, Technotree enjoys this partnership, for over 20 plus years, I suppose. Thank you so much for the participants. A lot of you are from MTN. It's great that you could be a part of it and join us. Please wait for the next session. Hopefully it's soon. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend. Take care.
Thank you,
Cheers,
everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, audience. Ciao, ciao. Bye.
Bye-bye.